Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And on this podcast, talk about everything when it comes to crowdfunding. Talk about getting into the trenches when it comes to a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign. How do you smash your goal, right? And how do you do it right? With a WeFunder equity crowdfunding campaign, get into that as well as some charity campaigns I've had on the show. And kind of my goal is to demystify the process for you, but also to get away from all that theory. You know, I never really liked going to school when I was younger, and that's because there was just so much theory and so much stuff that isn't applicable in the real world. It's like, why did I learn about geometry, trigonometry, Oedipus when it comes to literary theory? Why am I learning about these super outdated people when I should actually be learning how to buy a house or how to do accounting for my business or how to sell a client or how to, create a new product that changes the world? And that's kind of why I created this show. So I wanted to get away from all of that theory and to bring on real world examples, people that are absolutely crushing it with their campaign and can just kind of tell you what's working and what's not, and really just be super down to earth in that fashion. You just take those tactics and strategies and tools, apply that to your campaign, and you'll be able to be more successful. Now, we have had a lot of success stories of people who actually listen to the show and then really hit it big with their campaign, actually come back on the show and tell you exactly how they were able to do it. So my biggest hope and desire for you is that right now you're in the learning phase, you're becoming a student of crowdfunding, right? You're becoming a student of how to make a big splash with your product or to get a lot of attention. But eventually, hopefully you come back one day on this show as the master, right? Or at least as a little bit more educated and informed, and be able to share with my audience what worked for you and how you were able to have a successful campaign. That is really the whole goal with this podcast, is to have that kind of like karmic cycle. So that being said, I also wanted to, kind of talk a little bit about this new episode that I'm going to be releasing. So it's coming up after this, and it's really going to be going deep into Dragon's Den, right? So I had a recent episode where I basically talked about how to get on Shark Tank, and I interviewed two entrepreneurs who are on Shark Tank for a bubbly blaster. I also put a YouTube video out on my YouTube channel. You just search my name, Salvador Briggman. You can find my YouTube channel. Put out a YouTube video on how to get on Shark Tank and those kinds of things. And I actually had a lot of people reach out to me after that show, but also after the YouTube videos. And we're having on another person. We're having on someone who has been on Dragon's Den. And they're basically coming on and sharing with you exactly how they were able to do that, and kind of what are the steps that led up to that, and what do they recommend for other entrepreneurs who want to get on a show like that, but also some of the advice that they have in the way of e-commerce and crowdfunding and some of the tips that they would like to impart to you. So if this sounds interesting to you, I think you're really going to like today's podcast episode. I do have one other quick announcement here for you. So if you've been listening to my show and you've been liking it a lot, you're probably also going to like my book. So my book is called The Kickstarter Launch Formula. I really got started documenting this formula when I was getting started in 2012, 2013. It's taken me a long time to put this together, and it's now available as an Audible book for you. And if you want to download it and you just kind of want to listen on the go, on the way to work, as you're getting ready, you're going, maybe doing a run. I love to listen to podcasts when I'm running. If you're interested in that, you can go to this link and you can download my Audible book. And it's a really great place to get started. You can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you to Audible. If you're more of a physical book person, you can always look up Kickstarter Launch Formula on Amazon, or you can just search my YouTube channel. Eventually, you'll probably get a pitch by me for the book, because I do like to talk about that book a lot. But that being said, at the end of the episode, I'm also going to share with you a really special opportunity. And this is actually something that's completely new. So you're going to be hearing that at the end of today's episode. But I hope you enjoyed. It's coming up right after this. This podcast episode is sponsored by The Gadget Flow. The Gadget Flow reaches over 28 million people, and they've been around since 2012. They are Indiegogo and Kickstarter experts. They featured over 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns, and if you have a technology or design campaign, it is a great platform to generate awareness and get backers. You can check them out at thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have two people on the show. We have Vino, who is actually one of the podcast podcast listeners, but also has incredibly illustrious success here. He's been on Dragon's Den. He's helped a ton of people with their Indiegogo and crowdfunding campaigns. Also one of the most funded pet projects with crowdfunding. So he's going to tell you a little bit about that. We also have Zab on the line. Zab is my project manager, and she's also here to learn a bit about the project side of Kickstarter. Vino, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to finally turn from listener to guest and hopefully share some light around some of the crowdfunding experiences and our 15 minutes of fame pitching to some dragons.
Yeah, so let's kind of get started there, because like when you sent that to me, that really perked my ears up, and it was like I was saying before the pre-show. I would, go to school in DC, and I did study abroad in UK, and like that was always on TV. And it's basically like Shark Tank, right, in the UK. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us just a tiny bit about like how did that show come about, and like just lay the broad strokes there?
Yeah, so what people don't really know is that the Dragon's Den format, or the international franchise, actually started in Japan. But it first debuted in Canada. I think it was around 2006, as I was mentioning. I was in my senior years at high school and just started watching the show. And just like many others who've tuned into Shark Tank or Dragon's Den UK, really saw it as an opportunity to see these businesses that were being built in your backyard, and having the opportunity to present it to some of Canada's top venture capitalists. And see what happens, right? And see if you're able to really convince them and show conviction around what you're trying to build and bring it to market, and really address questions both from an investor's point of view as well as from a consumer's point of view, and trying to do that all in a snapshot of a segment while not trying to sweat too much or lose your cool is kind of like the synopsis of the experience, if I could put it that way.
How did you actually get on the show? Like, did someone reach out to you? Did you apply? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. So they host auditions prior to any season that they shoot, and while we were starting our current venture, Cabo Fresh Dog Food, we've been operating it for, at that time, a little over a year. Auditions opened up in, I think, January 2020. I was actually out in Vancouver in the western part of Canada, setting up our fulfillment center there, and noticed that they had an open call for auditions. And what they typically do is they kind of go from city to city, having an open call for auditions, and you really just show up, and you kind of pitch to a panelist of sit-in dragons, as I call them, also known as the producers, or the people behind the magic that we see on screen. And really the goal there is to do a similar pitch. The pitches you see on TV, they'll go through similar questions, asking about the business, the product, your story, challenges. And, in that initial auditioning process, as producers, they have two jobs here. It's like, one, on the investment side, see if this business is at a ripe stage that makes sense to present to these investors. And on the other side, as TV producers, they're wondering, how does this fit into their segment? What's the story or the hook or the
entertaining
climax here? Yeah, exactly. The entertaining component. So, when I went into the audition, I was doing it alone, but, I started this business with my identical twin brother, and, working in the world of dog food, I felt like we had the perfect combination of dogs, a twin factored in there. All we were missing was cats and babies, and we could have been an internet phenomenon.
Yeah, you'd go viral, man. What did it feel like when you were doing that and you were having to put yourself out there, even just to the producers, right? What did that feel like?
It's definitely a daunting and anxiety-driving experience, especially if you watch the show a lot more, because you've seen how it works, and there's kind of these like two classes where you either get a deal or you don't, or you're either doing well or you don't do well, and it's really up to the magic of TV editing as to how that might turn out. So in the producer's pitch, I think your goal there is to really figure out, okay, what type of pitch contestant am I going to be on this show? And sometimes you get into this world of overthinking, but prior to the audition, I was just so busy with setting up our fulfillment center, didn't have too much time to think about it, and found that was actually the best way to go in, because when I was able to go in and really just advocate for our business and have fun and interact with them just as people, that almost like takes that barrier away, and you go back to doing what you do best, because founders are the best at selling their business and sharing about it, and should be a very seamless thing to talk about. So I think outside of that, if you really know your numbers, which in the world of consumer product, you should be knowing your numbers quite often to understand how much money you have left, or what your next milestone is. A lot of it kind of fell together, and really it was just realizing that these are people out there that are looking to learn a little bit more about me, and how can I present it in a fun, engaging way that's the true essence of Vino.
Definitely. So after that happens and you go through the audition process, how long is it between then and when you go on the show?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So they were supposed to shoot. So we found out after probably say a couple months that we were cast to be on the shoot. And even when they cast you to come from auditions to then eventually shooting for the episode, you're still not guaranteed to end up on the final episode. It really depends on how the content works. So they actually bring in probably a few more candidates than they normally would show on the show, just so that gives them a bit of options to pick and choose, because it is a reality show, and they can't predict too much of what happens in it.
Yeah.
So for us, we were supposed to shoot in April 2020. Unfortunately, that was literally the moment the pandemic hits and starts spreading in Canada. So for our knowledge, we were like, okay, this show's canceled, like the season's canceled. Dragon's Den's also run by the Canadian Broadcasting Company, CBC. So it is a government-funded entity, and therefore, they don't have as much flexibility as it's more of these private shows. So at that time, I was like, all right, this is done, it's over. But out of nowhere, at the end of summer, they kind of reached out and said the film industry has really built out these COVID practices, and they were going to shoot that season and try and get it in before the end of the year. And luckily for us, when my brother and I had a chance to go on and pitch and do it at the end of summer, we were actually able to be selected. And then the episode itself actually aired in Q4 in October, which for an e-commerce business is an ideal time.
That's huge. Yeah, that's definitely really big. Just for those who haven't seen the episode yet, do you want to reveal like what happened there, or do you want them to go and watch that?
Well, I'll definitely lead up to some tidbits, because it is a bit of a nail biter, as you've probably seen. But yeah, like when we went in, I think, first and foremost, we wanted to find a creative way to really present to the Dragons instead of walking out there and saying, hey, we deliver fresh dog food in Canada. We wanted to find a way to really captivate our audience, both to the Dragons and knowing that we were also even catering it to the millions of people who watch it at home. So we knew in a way we had to, play into the entertainment aspect, as well as really being able to present our business.
That's so smart. Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah, so my brother is actually a huge TV fanatic, and he's probably watched the most amount of TV shows that have been canceled, which is funny, because he's a fan of like really bad TV and script writing and pilots specifically. So we were really able to figure out like what were the archetypes of characters that would be on the show. And knowing that they were going to shoot 45 minutes to an hour, we really had to think about how do we carefully talk about our business, to these investors, to show them we have conviction and understanding of our business results. And at that time, we just surpassed over $1 million in revenue. As a business focused on dog food, we're actually revolving around a very strong reoccurring behavior. So we're actually a repeat business, and emphasizing that was important, and really emphasizing like why our food was different, and why people needed a healthier experience, why pet data really helped Cabo provide this experience that wasn't available through retailers or an Amazon platform. And at the end of it, we had a strong amount of conviction from the Dragons. What you end up actually seeing is only a certain number of Dragons who actually chose to invest. But in real life, what happened was we had offers from across the board.
Really?
Yeah, and obviously due to editing, they kind of chose based on the ones that we were really wanting to work with. So we were really set on working with Arlene Dickinson, who's had well over a decade of experience in food entrepreneurship in Canada, and Michelle Romanow, who's previously exited from some fast-growing tech companies and is recently leading the efforts in growing Clearbank, which is one of the top financing businesses for e-com ventures. So we knew that those two were our target, and once we heard a yes from those two individuals, we were really trying to find ways to make both of them work, and it ended up going forward with one individual.
Yeah, I admire the heck out of you for that, man. I think Zab also, you all had a question about dealing with the anxiety and like how do you maybe you can word it better, but how do you like do public speaking, right?
Yeah, exactly. So public speaking is a huge challenge for me. I'm not a fan of talking in front of people. So I was wondering, like, did you prepare your speech ahead of time and like practice it and rehearse it, or was it just kind of like off the cuff and just, as it came out when you were in front of the dragons?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely say practice is the thing that people don't see a lot of. So considering I was auditioning in January, I was really practicing from January until the end of summer in 2020. Obviously with a bit of a break once I found out the show wasn't going to be running in April, and then once we heard notice the month of, we just spent a lot of time practicing. What I typically do for practicing is I like to write things out. So I'll kind of not necessarily write everything on a script by script basis, but we first, my brother first just digested the Dragon's Den episodes and came down to a list of questions that they typically ask. What are the types of responses that are they trying to seed for? And then we really kind of not really nailed it on a word by word basis, but said, if we're going to be asked a question on our unit economics, how do we be as concise and as straight to the point as possible and give them the information that they need? And we'd have this like working Google Doc with all these like blocks of points around different things. And you're not going to remember everything. And that's the reason why you're not trying to be too specific, but you're trying to remember what's the general takeaway and how do you get to that point saying it as concisely as possible and still show your character and conviction. Sometimes when you script things too much, you lose a bit of who you are. So it's a balance of building confidence by doing these processes of practicing, and after the writing, what I would do is just have myself on a Google Meet by myself and record it. And whether I was working out or if I was just sitting in my room, I would practice that pitching. And I got some great advice from past contestants around how one of these past contestants, Mark from True Local, who recently just had his business acquired actually, got a deal from Dragons Den, and he was mentioning how he'd be like walking across the street or have his team pitch to ask him to pitch, and he'd call it like drop and pitch, and literally just be like he's walking on the street asking a lady who's walking her dog and saying, "Excuse me, do you mind if I pitch you something?" And he'd do the same to his team, and I really loved that concept. So I started
pitch the dog, yeah.
Exactly.
That's so cool. And I think too, like the fact that if you flip the script a little bit, that you're going into this giving other people an opportunity, right? It's not just that you're looking for a handout or something like that. Like you got $1 million company, you're growing fast, and you're a hard worker. You're giving other people as well the opportunity to be a part of that.
Exactly. And I think that's the idea. It's like sometimes people get afraid because of how tough the questions can be, or how mean they might be, quote unquote mean they might seem on TV. The reality is like you're just talking to people, right? And if you almost like take that idea of that class presentation example, whenever you stand in front of a class, just picture people naked or in their underwear or something, where it adds a bit of humor or a level of comfort for yourself. Similarly, individuals like Jim Treveling, who's built Boston Pizza, one of the largest fast food franchises in Canada, also one of the dragons who have one of the greatest net worths on the panel. You talk to him, and what I found was so interesting was like each of these individuals have actually made an impact in our lives. Like Jim, when he started Boston Pizza and grown it to what it was, when my family first came to Canada as refugees, one of my dad's first jobs was actually in his restaurants. And Lane, who was another judge on there, was the founder of Club Penguin, which kind of dates us to 90s kids, but Club Penguin was one of those initial social network platforms, and it was started by a Canadian, and it was literally when my brother and I first got dial-up in the apartment that we were growing up in, with all those like AOL CD-ROM placements. AOL. Yeah, everyone was those days. So when we were growing up, we didn't have as much money, but we'd use these like trials, and we would go on Club Penguin, and that's what really got us interested in technology. And here we were, decades later, literally talking to these people who've actually influenced our lives, and just having that opportunity and looking at it from that perspective changes the way you go into that show. Is like, your opportunity here is not only to get a deal, but even to build relationships and see so many connecting points come together.
Did you have any other questions on that, Zab? Otherwise, we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I think that kind of covered my curiosity on, how do you prep for talking to, multimillionaires and billionaires?
So I mean, I'm really curious of when it comes to like crowdfunding, you've also had a ton of success here, right? Can you just kind of bite-size explain for listeners a little bit of your work in that industry and what's relevant there?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess to lay some context into that, I really got into working with businesses that were in the crowdfunding space and e-commerce space when I first joined Facebook, and this was back in 2012, and it was right before Facebook was going public. Facebook didn't have an advertising product at the time. It was just page likes and fans, if people remember what those days were like, and now they've gone to nothing.
Do you remember when people would like upload so many of their photos and like tag everyone and like those early days?
Oh yeah. I remember all those fun stories from the early days, and I think sometimes it's funny because we almost forget to a degree as to what the state was like. And when I joined early on, I actually dropped out of university. I was only like 20 or 21 at the time. So I had this great opportunity working really with the growing advertising products. So newsfeed ads came out, led by Boz, who's a phenomenal leader in the engineering team there. And over time, I just started falling into this bucket of D2C and e-commerce. So working with brands that were, shipping razors or mattresses, you name it, everything from 2012 to 2017 was in that realm. And really got exposed into the crowdfunding space as well, because primarily at that time Shopify was becoming a more prominent platform, and so was Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and had the opportunity to work with some great entrepreneurs that, for instance, launched Loop, which was one of the first at its time, a cat litter box that made it more efficient to conserve some of the litter that you're using and make it easier to clean up the mess that your cat leaves behind. And he and his mom had this patent for this certain type of cat litter. They were going to do this big launch on Kickstarter, and really those were the heydays of Facebook ads, as I would call it, where CPAs were really low, not a lot of advertisers, and I was really interested, after growing so many of these e-com, D2C or venture-backed companies, can we take this model and apply it to something like crowdfunding and see where it goes? And as a matter of fact, it ended up
it did pretty well. It got more than 14,000 backers. I'm looking here, more than 1 million Canadian dollars on this project. So this was huge.
Yeah, and at the time, I don't know if they still hold the record, but it was the most funded pet product on any crowdfunding platform, both Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And it's what's so funny was like the attribution back then was very ambiguous. It wasn't like you could place a pixel and say you were getting a certain return on ad spend, but those were really some of the most fun days where I got an opportunity to work really closely with the entrepreneur and understand what are the levers and tools we could use to really get the message out there. And I absolutely loved learning more about the Facebook algorithm when I first joined, and similarly started piquing my interest in towards how Kickstarter and Indiegogo worked and how they ranked people organically and what really drove the lever for them.
I mean, honestly, I still think it's pretty ambiguous when it comes to Kickstarter for a lot of people with how to do Facebook ads. But so when it comes to this project, were you working like internally with Facebook on this project, or were you like consulting for the campaign? Are you looking for help with the fulfillment side of your rewards on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or any other crowdfunding website? FulfillRight is literally the gold standard when it comes to crowdfunding reward fulfillment. These guys will help you ship out your products, your packages, your orders to all of your customers and your backers. They've been working in this industry for a really long time. I totally vouch for their services, and they'll even do things like answer simple questions for you on fulfillment and shipping and figuring out how to get your products into the hands of your customers in the easiest way possible. If you're interested in learning more about them, you can go to fulfillright.com or crowdcrux.com/fulfillright, and that will take you to them. Again, that is FULFILLRITE.com.
Yeah, so it's funny because I call it the wild, wild west days of Facebook. I was internally at Facebook as a Facebook employee, and
Interesting.
yeah, and working with advertisers. So in the early days, what was really interesting was after Facebook ads became a little bit easier to understand, it was really around, how do we think about our audience and build tools around it. So when I started working with Shopify and their dropshipping ecosystem, I realized that Facebook needed a product where we could just target worldwide instead of typing every country in. And that's really how Facebook products kind of came about in the advertising ecosystem, is like put yourself in the shoes of some of these businesses. And with e-com, things were changing way faster at that time. So one of the biggest areas was crowdfunding. And here I was with a Canadian entrepreneur right in my backyard with a global product and a willingness to push. So we, in the beginning would just start arbitrarily with like website traffic ads and just say, all right, we spent 4,000 and we got 16,000 in revenue from that campaign on that day. And it literally be this simple Google sheet where it'd literally say the spend on Facebook, and I'd even work and give them advice on Google spend and connect them to my counterparts at Google. It was a very collaborative effort.
Really? Wow. That surprises me, actually. That's really cool. When
Yeah,
it comes,
it's really funny because my brother's job, so my twin brother also ended up joining Facebook after. He actually finished his degree, and his job was working with the big retailers. So he had to work with like the Walmart.coms of the world to get into digital marketing back in 2014 or so. And back then it was a whole feat. And they'd be working with data partners, their Google counterparts, internally with people at Walmart. It was a huge collaborative effort because the way companies like Facebook and Google and Shopify really think is that if we're able to help the entrepreneur in any means necessary, then at the end of the day it benefits the publisher, let's say Facebook or Google's advertising end goals.
so you basically had this idea of applying what you already knew in terms of marketing to this campaign. It seemed to work out pretty well. Did you have any other takeaways from Loop? Was it like wow, there's a big opportunity here, or even just like the idea of having a pet product on Kickstarter, I think blows a lot of people away that it can do that much. Like, what was your big takeaway from that one?
Yeah, I think there's a few takeaways. Like certain categories do really well on crowdfunding. I've learned a lot of that from your podcast actually, and one of the things that I found that was most fascinating was like when you looked at this pet audience, and what really got us into building our own business, Cabo, was that the pet audience is very identifiable on the internet. If you think about it, the moment that someone goes to go get a cat or a dog, they're probably searching about what's the best dog for my apartment. A point of urgency hits up and you're like, how do I find a vet near me? If you go on discovery platforms like Facebook, Pinterest, or TikTok, people are naturally putting up photos on there. And it's not like there's a Facebook product marketer or project manager sitting there being like, oh, I wonder how we get dog people to put up photos of their dogs on the internet. It's innate in people. So what I really loved about that project with Loop was that, this pet audience was so identifiable on the internet that if you're really able to bring up a solution or really find a product that was solving a problem for them, you could really reach them in multitudes of ways. Whereas, if you take that into comparison, like let's take an instance like a mattress, like you might not necessarily know a human's behavior online and how it maps back into a mattress, and it's a bit harder to navigate that outside of a search intent platform. So I think the takeaway I always think about with anyone who's thinking about any project that they're doing, whether it's crowdfunding or e-commerce, is understand your audience and look at what they would do in an offline environment and see what's actually replicated in an online environment in both an intent-based platform like Google Search or YouTube and in discovery platforms like Instagram or TikTok.
Did you have any questions on that one, Zab, with a project that has so many backers and like how they were able to manage that or the time frame or anything like that?
Not so much, no. I'm much more curious about Cabo and how that all got started.
Yeah, definitely. So with Cabo, we started about 2 years ago in early 2019 officially. But prior to that, while we were at Facebook, my brother and I had so much experiences building $1 million companies for all these new e-com entities in a span of 3 to 5 years that we knew that at a certain point we were going to do a consumer product ourselves, and we became dog parents and absolutely love pets and animals. I gotta say, working in e-com, the best type of customers to have are dogs or cats. They have not as much of a high demand and expectations around delivery like humans do now with Amazon. But all jokes aside, what we realized was, relating back to that point that I had, the experiences that I had at Facebook and working with these crowdfunding partners was, we just saw that the pet audience was, extremely identifiable online. We were going through the experiences ourselves firsthand. And when our dog unfortunately passed away, we realized that there was this opportunity to provide a healthier diet for pets, make mealtime enjoyable, easy, and most importantly, start to tap into this opportunity of utilizing pet data. So when we first started Cabo Fresh Dog Food, the main objective was just to offer more variety in terms of fresh dog food options for consumers and make it easy for them to get it shipped to their house, be able to have the flexibility that we saw was becoming very popular with meal kit companies and ready-to-eat meals on the human side. And ourselves, humanizing our pets, like our dog, we would joke about with our dad around, in Sri Lanka, how they would put out rice and yogurt, and now he's bought like literally a Casper mattress for our dog when he visits him in his house. He's got a jacket, he's got a Canada Goose jacket, he's got boots. So it was really interesting seeing this humanization trend happening around our pets, because we want to treat them like family. But when it came to food, it was just like the shittiest stuff. We really never understood what was in the ingredients. Transparency wasn't there. And the products were built for a retail environment. So most dog food lasts for like 62 months. But it's not like you have human food that's sitting around lasting that long. And when we do, we really question it, right? Like people are now questioning cereal because we're like, what nutritional value is the cereal provide in the day? And similarly enough, we found out that a lot of dog food was made by the same machines that have originally started making cereal. So we just looked at the process, started diving into it, started feeding our dogs freshly cooked diets, and started noticing some of the differences and improvements with a new dog my brother adopted. And over time, we started getting more and more people onto it, and eventually has grown it to today to become the largest fresh dog food network in Canada. We offer not only freshly cooked diets that arrive frozen, but we also have a dry selection of food. And what Cabo's evolved to become is really this place where dog parents can come to cabo.co, give us information about their dog, and based on information around their age, weight, activity levels, we're able to then fine tune those options and present what's actually suitable for your dog, and give you the ability to customize based on what's suitable for your lifestyle. And then make it easy for you to manage that subscription experience.
That's so cool. That's actually really reminds me of something in the US. We have Hungry Root or Hello Fresh, where you can kind of like get these subscription meals you make, and just going on your site now, like you can see, tender chicken, luscious lamb, all this kind of stuff. Like they're eating better than humans. I mean, I don't know if I'm that healthy.
It's funny because on our box, it literally says, I eat healthier than my humans, which is dog lingo for humans.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're taking what already works there in terms of like HelloFresh, Hungry Root, and applying that to the pet industry. And obviously people are so invested in their pets regardless, and like we love them and they're part of the family. So I think that's really smart. What year did you launch that in, just out of curiosity?
January 2019 is when we officially launched, and it wasn't until July 2019 that we had the product in market for customers.
Very cool. That's a very fast timeline there. Cool. So I have just a couple more questions here when it comes to that. But I guess while we're still on the subject of Cabo here, do you want to share anything in the way of like how you went about executing on that aggressive timeline, from like figuring out the ingredients, the suppliers, anything there?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the background work around the formulation was actually in 2018 before we kind of made that official jump. So at that time, after we left Facebook, we really wanted to have some more experience working in other consumer product businesses, understand how the VC landscape was working. And in the background on the weekends, we were really trying to figure out the formulation side with experts and third-party consultants. Once, we really figured out the base around what our first formulation would be. I think like with anything else, what I've really learned from watching a lot of these businesses and being one part of growing these businesses, is that, in order to get your feet wet, you've got to really become the first customer. So my brother had this dog that he recently adopted, Milos, and we started feeding him, and we had more of our team members started to use the product themselves, and that helped us formulate things like what our MVP packaging was going to be. When we even first started, we only had one recipe. I believe it was our beef recipe to start. And for most of 2019, we knew as a consumer product business, we couldn't come out with, the lamb options and dry and cooked options. We really had to choose one thing. We only had two recipes for the most part. And even when we first got our handful of customers in July, the focus was really around how do we take a lot of unscalable practices to place. So we went on Instagram and literally just searched hashtag Toronto and hashtag dogs to see people who were in the city where we were producing the food, and would DM hundreds of individuals. It's not a successful way to acquire people for sure. But what it allows you to do is to start to say, is the marketing pillars of conviction stand true to what I believe? Because we knew freshly cooked food helped your dog live on average 32 months longer. But is that what resonated with people? And really being able to get your hands dirty in the trenches allowed us to see firsthand, okay, what's funny enough, people actually liked seeing the difference in poop versus talking about how long their dog's going to live, or how enjoyable mealtime was for them, and how the dogs started recognizing the box over time to know it's a delivery for the dog. So that actually helped us shape and formulate the direction. So I think a lot of those unscalable approaches in the beginning helped us set the foundation. And once we said, okay, we know why people tip over to becoming a Cabo customer, then it became a lot easier to say, let's start building out some of these functionalities on the website. Let's offer more variety, and let's start, including things like paid acquisition into the mix.
To me, it sounds like one of your kind of secret skills or hidden abilities is this ability to kind of assemble a team and also to take this big idea you have and actually execute on it. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, like we have great ideas and everything's running a mile a minute with our thoughts, but then how do you actually execute on it? Like, what was your approach like for team building for Cabo? Because you can only obviously do so much yourself.
Yeah, so I think what was really interesting about Cabo with our team is that, if we looked at our team in 2019 and 2020, most of it's assembled from someone that's a degree or two within our network. What I started realizing that, outside of obviously my twin brother, who I've known since the early days of the womb, but what I realized was that some of the best team members in your early days are really going to be people that are within your network, that you've worked with in the past, that to some degree, because it's really all about trust. It's, how do you put someone in a position and give them what they need to have in order to really build out from your initial vision? Because one of the things that I've always seen cripple a lot of founders from moving forward fast enough is being able to trust others to take on work, or being able to remove themselves from the executional components. In the beginning, as I was mentioning, I was out there in Vancouver doing fulfillment, and now, luckily, I'm not as involved in the day-to-days of that, but being able to bring in those right people within your network helps. So I found that really reaching out to people that I've worked with in the past, even some of my past clients, asking them, if they've have any suggestions for people that are interested in diving into this space. And I think at a certain point, which we've kind of hit now, is like you kind of tap that out, and really you have to start to create more public forums so that you can reach people and advocate your vision. Because the challenge we'll have now, and what kind of keeps me up, is thinking, how do I convince a data engineer to come work at a dog food company instead of going to Google or TikTok, right?
Yeah, where they're going to be paid like a fortune, just have those companies throw money at them, get free food, all that stuff. And to me, it sounds like the reason why would be the culture and like the mission you have. Do you think that's kind of where you're headed?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the best things that we offer to our team is like just a straight understanding of what it's like to be an employee, right? Like we've been in that position. So when we even do our recruiting process, most of the times I'm thinking about, where does this individual go a year from now or 2 years from now, because the company's growing so fast. And in every pre-screening interview I conduct, it's really around, what is this individual looking for in their life? Are they looking to kind of prove themselves? Are they at a stage where they've built this wealth of knowledge and are really looking to implement it from the ground up? Are they, looking for more of a remote environment? Because alignment is probably the biggest thing, since, we realize that our culture provides people a lot of freedom and opportunity to have ownership around their work, and to walk away and say, hey, I did this at Cabo in X amount of months and increased this performance by X percentage. And as an individual who's looking to get employed and obviously grow their careers, I'm not like blinded by the fact that everyone's going to stay on this mission to help dogs live a happier, healthier life. But how can we help them along that road, and how can they help us? So we're very transparent on, ensuring that we understand what they're looking for. And then we kind of share a little bit more about our culture, about how we even have mentors from Amazon, Google, Facebook, and different companies that literally come into teams and do monthly webinar sessions, or help people figure out, as a data employee, how do I prioritize these tasks when I'm the first hire here? And a lot of the times, as an entrepreneur, your goal isn't to reinvent the wheel, it's to leverage these individuals. So in our culture, we're really about like bringing in those resources so that, anytime anyone does join Cabo, they're really put on a track to, feel confident around the work they're doing and make an impact on their own.
To me, the other thing that really stands out is the fact that you have a lot of personality with your brand. And I think so many larger corporations shy away from showing that personality because of like the PC culture, right? Like they're afraid of maybe putting out a funny Instagram comparing poops, right? like they're afraid of, I don't know, some backlash or something. But you guys almost lead a bit with the personality and like the way that the way you love dogs. And like I think that really resonates with the customers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a consumer product, like you only have one goal, and that is to gain trust of people. And the day and ages of hiding behind a brand or a logo without having the people behind it or a voice that really resonates to the audience is kind of coming to a tipping point where, in the dog community, like, we have our own language around certain things. It's very, very proactive and helpful amongst each other. And the brand really needs to embody that. And it starts with, myself and our founding team, but it really continues with the individuals and the culture you build. So it's really an important aspect of ours because it's one of the things that helps our brand voice drive trust with our consumers.
How big is your team there now, out of curiosity?
I believe we're just a little over 20 people now.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I want to ask in a second some questions about your morning recovery. I don't know if you had any questions on this one, Zab, before we move on there.
Yeah, I was curious to know, throughout the process of growing your business, what were some of the most exciting or rewarding moments?
Yeah, I'd say like a lot of the exciting and rewarding moments are the ones where the scariest things happen to you, where, for instance, around the COVID timing, our West Coast fulfillment center that we just opened up with a partner had shut down because they were winding down operations. I think it's like sometimes when you're doing inventory cash flow analysis and you're realizing, okay, our runway is a lot shorter than we thought. Weirdly enough, I've slowly come to enjoy some of the worst times of our business. And I honestly think like that's the number one thing everyone really should become comfortable with, is like, just as much as, we enjoyed a lot of the great times, like being on Dragon's Den or hitting these revenue milestones, the times I really enjoy are probably some of our darkest days, because we really overcame a lot. And at that time, it seemed like impossible to overcome.
Yeah, it tells you so much, I think, about how much you care as well, right? Because if you're willing to push past all of those things and still come out the other side with a strong vision, people who are with you and stayed with you, and like conviction, that just shows how committed I think you are as well to your vision,
Exactly. Great.
Well, awesome. So I have just a couple more questions here. We got to ask you about this other crowdfunding campaign. Like, I'm not going to let you go until we get to this one. But so this other campaign you did for morning recovery, do you think you could just touch a tiny bit on that? I know we're kind of going backwards in time, I think, a bit there, but it'd be great if we could shed some light on that one.
Yeah, definitely. So Morning Recovery was now known as More Labs. is on a mission to help humans improve their lives and drive productivity through beverages that they launch and bring into market to address some of the common issues we have, such as hangovers or sleep issues or even focus. And it was started by a friend of mine from Facebook who I work with, Season Lee and Kenny Leung, and Misha was also the third co-founder there. Season and Kenny work with me at Facebook. They knew my dive into the world of crowdfunding a lot, and they reached out early on when they were launching it, and we're primarily going to be launching on Kickstarter. And I kind of gave them the heads up. That's not the platform to go to because it was a beverage product, and it was specifically working around something like a hangover, which is classified as a health issue. And I'm not sure if Kickstarter's ever overcame that, but they kind of went around launching Indiegogo, and at that time I was just finished up at Facebook, was consulting for clients, and was helping Kenny out with the initial launch of this campaign and providing some advice from my learnings. And one of the things that was the most interesting about this was that really a lot of it was around how the pre-launch work had changed over since I did that Loop campaign. And the Loop campaign, it wasn't like there was that much pre-launch or effort required because you could run an email lead gen campaign or sorry, not lead gen campaign. It wasn't available then, but you could capture emails fairly effectively and make it work out. When Morning Recovery kind of came out in that 2017 timing, times have changed. Email leads were not as strong quality. So there was really a focus around, when Season came around building this, he was actually doing it while he was at Tesla and as a side hustle. And over time, just realized that there's this opportunity around building this morning recovery drink to help people recover from, a rough night of drinking the day before. Yeah. And, emphasized to him that the video was everything. They really focused on creating a strong video, but the other aspect was just getting the product into people's hands. So working in the tech ecosystem in the Bay Area, he was really able to leverage his past employment opportunities. He's worked at Uber, Tesla, and Facebook. So he's got a huge network of tech people that he would send the product to, get feedback, and eventually realize that there's this opportunity to move forward. He raised a bit of capital from his co-founding team and really started working on production. So a huge amount of the effort was really on the production of the first product. And then when it came down to the launch aspect, it was really around taking a different approach and leveraging Product Hunt. So because of Season's background, you really want to think about that pre-launch effort being tied to that individual. As we were talking about, trust is really built with consumers through the brand voice or through the individual. The same thing kind of happened on this pre-launch effort. It was really what does Season's network look like and Kenny's network look like, and how can we tap them to seed this audience and to really surface up on Indiegogo. And that's how it really started. They went towards Product Hunt and shared the morning recovery concept on Product Hunt on the launch of the Indiegogo, and it ended up going on the front page of Product Hunt, and Product Hunt ended up becoming the largest organic driver. And following that, really a lot of the efforts that allowed the effort to grow was a lot of organic press. So leveraging the right type of articling. So nothing says, a great clickbait title like ex-Tesla employee launches hangover drink.
That's a good one.
When I eventually joined full-time as head of growth, and starting to take it off not only the Indiegogo platform, but bringing it onto an e-com platform, it was a lot of leveraging this great novel aspect to drive messaging around the product. So that gave Morning Recovery the opportunity to be present in things like Forbes, all the way to men's lifestyle magazines, and that brought in a variety of audiences. On top of it, it built a strong link back strategy. So it's very difficult to win on the SEO game when you're in crowdfunding because it's something new.
So fast too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what we found from this campaign was a lot of article backlinking supported that, because one of the greatest things about this product is that people search hangovers when they're hungover and are very inclined to make a decision at that time. So we realized that there was a huge amount of SEO value built in a very short period of time from that type of strategy.
That is so interesting. Yeah, that is something you don't think about in the moment, because SEO, that's more of an organic, going to take a couple of months, but then you think about afterwards, right? and the way you can drive people to the website and the way that you can capture those keywords. So I think that's really something that should be talked about more in the niche. And I find it really cool, what you guys are doing there. And one of the other facts I think you said in the pre-interview is they ended up raising money right after this as well.
Yeah. So, and that's when I officially joined the team, was when we closed about, I believe it was an $8 million Series A round. And the goal really was to start building out this one product business into a fledgling consumer beverage company, and really leveraging a lot of my background in the e-commerce growth side of things.
Do you think did the Indiegogo campaign impact that at all, or is that kind of already on track to go through?
Definitely the Indiegogo campaign had impacted the efforts. I believe even the way that Season and his co-founding team started the efforts was really around a personal pain point, right? Season was he's a very hardworking guy, and he likes to indulge. He's Korean background, and if you've ever been to South Korea before in the past, it's a huge drinking and eating culture and a working culture, and productivity is of utmost importance. And then that combined with the fact he works in the Bay Area, productivity hacking is a huge component. So it really started with him as a side hustle and grew onto Indiegogo, and then from there presented the opportunity to really build a large multi-million-dollar brand.
Great. So I don't want to keep you too much longer here. Let's just do one more question, Zab, and then we can kind of close it off there, if that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my final question here would just be, what advice would you give new entrepreneurs? So very young individuals, maybe haven't had a lot of corporate experience. What advice would you give them if they have a product or an idea that they really want to get started on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think nowadays, I think one of my advice has definitely changed, where I would literally say tuning into this podcast is probably the most direct way you could learn a lot about different types of businesses. I find exploratory content like this, where you guys are covering everything from tabletop games to people evolving their crowdfunding into e-com entities,
Shark Tank recently.
Yeah, Shark Tank recently as well. So being able to really hear these different stories, I think helps build one thing that you're trying to build as an entrepreneur, which is confidence. And once you start hearing more stories that are not the classic, I went out there and magically $3 million landed on my on my lap and got this funding. It's more that helps build more and more confidence in helping you understand how you can get started and what are the options available to you. Because starting a business can mean different things for different individuals, and just being able to get a broader awareness of the different types of entrepreneurs and the different types of paths people have taken is important. Because my advice isn't going to be similar to someone who might say, hey, drop out of what you're doing in your career and launch your business. I'm a huge proponent of, if you have a full-time job, keep it. Try and create a side hustle. Wait until that side hustle becomes big enough to become a problem on your day-to-day. And now you've created a good problem to quit your job and do something else full-time. But that piece of advice is only going to apply to a certain number of individuals. And the best advice that really sits out there is, gather more information, listen to more podcasts like this that really expose you to different types of entrepreneurs that have taken different paths. And that really builds your confidence in terms of how you can get started.
Very well said. High quality problems, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on and being super candid here. Where can people learn more about you? I know there's Cabo. Is there any other sites you want to plug here just so people can learn more about you?
Yeah, if you ever want to learn anything about the world of dog food, you can find us on Instagram or social through our handle at Cabo Foods. If you want to reach out to me or stay connected with some of the stuff that I write about or share, I primarily share a lot on LinkedIn, so you can find me at Vino Jayapalan on LinkedIn. Or on the other side, you can find me on Twitter once in a while at Vino Jeya, or Instagram. I do post my selfish promotions around dog food or some of the engagements I'm a part of, but I'm always open to reaching out and helping the community, and I love taking part in these types of engagements so that I can help disseminate the information while it's fresh and before I forget everything.
Great. Yeah, I'll be sure to link those up in the description, specifically your LinkedIn. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Great to see it come full circle, being a listener, now being a guest, and providing tons of great content and stories. Really appreciate it, and look forward to all your future success here.
Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed my time today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. I started crowdcrux.com back in 2012, and it's been my mission since then to educate and teach about crowdfunding, about creating new products. How do you really have a splash when you go live? How do you smash your goal on Kickstarter and Indiegogo? And my teachings have led me, through many different things that don't work. I've figured out a bunch of stuff that does work, and really my goal is just to kind of bring that to you. So thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast episode. And I do have a bit of a unique announcement for you today. I think that this is going to be an incredible opportunity for you if you're interested in things like, number one, getting access to the latest cutting edge tactics, tips, advice, and resources when it comes to crowdfunding. Number two, if you are interested in not only hitting your goal, but wildly exceeding it, going far past and far beyond what it is that you're looking to do in terms of your fundraising goal on Kickstarter, Indiegogo. And in addition, you're looking to gain access to me. You want to do more personalized one-on-one coaching. You want to attend some of the workshops that I do in my insider community. If you also want to have a little bit more hand-holding in that way, I'm going to be sharing a bit of an opportunity with you in just a second. And the final thing is, when we're all working at home, as entrepreneurs, we kind of like to work in the trenches, and we like to work alone sometimes, but it can also be a little bit lonely. Sometimes it's nice to be a part of a thriving community of people, of other creators and other creative types who not only are creating new products, but are also hustling their face off. Like they're hustling, they're working hard, they're figuring out stuff that works and doesn't. They're sharing the techniques and strategies that are working for them. And if it sounds exciting to you, be a part of a community like that, a community of game changers, a community of people who not only just say the things that they want to do, but they're actually taking active steps towards it. And what's more, they're cheering you on. It's not only a supportive community, in my opinion, but it's also an incredible networking resource to be able to network some other business owners and some other people that are in your category. If this sounds interesting to you, if you want to join the CrowdCrux family, if you will, and also get access, as I mentioned, to a lot of cool strategies, techniques, and tactics, stuff that I don't share publicly, you can join what I call my mastermind. So mastermind is a very, very hypey word, but it's really the best way, I think, to describe kind of what's growing here. And it's surprising even me. I got into the industry, I was just starting with blogging, then I got into podcasting, then I got into YouTube, I did coaching, I've helped clients a lot. I've done all these different things in the industry, right? And to me, this is one of the most exciting, and it feels like something new and is growing rapidly. And so many people are not only chatting every day and posting in the group and going on the workshops every single week and attending them and getting tons of value out of it. I'm sharing stuff that I have never shared before. And it's kind of almost anxiety inducing to me. I'm literally giving you a peek behind the curtain, and you see the little Wizard of Oz guy, and you suddenly learn how all of this is done. It's kind of exciting to me, because while part of me is a little bit concerned, maybe I shouldn't be giving so much proprietary insider trade secrets. Maybe I shouldn't be making all that available. Maybe I should be doing what all these other marketing companies are doing, right? Which is just charging really high prices for you to pay to eventually figure this out, and then run a campaign for you. And it's exorbitant prices. But then I thought back to my early days, and I'm the reason why I founded CrowdCrux was that I really wanted to show people the way and to share education tools with you that can help you. And if you do end up deciding in the future you want to work with me or hire me or something like that, that's great. Happy to do that. But for those of you who really do want to do this yourself, and you also want to even just see what else is out there that you might not be aware of. You just study this podcast and you're wow, I'm learning all this new stuff, right? Same thing with the YouTube channel that I have. Oh, there's so many things I didn't know that were involved with crowdfunding. And rather than having to figure it out and hunt it down, why not get access to tons of tools, worksheets, resources, checklists, all those kinds of things that will help ignite a campaign. That will make it so that it's very easy. It's almost like a paint by numbers kind of fashion. So rather than hunting around and making it difficult for yourself, take the time to invest in yourself. Think about all the amount that you've invested in education up until this point in life. Think about all that you've invested in things that just don't work and that aren't supporting you. I think that as entrepreneurs, we already have it so difficult. As creative types, it's already so hard, right, to get something off the ground. The way you make it easy is by working with people who are aligned with your values, by being a part of a thriving, bubbling community of people that are also enthusiastic, and you feed off of that energy, my friend. You feed off of it, and it's empowering, right? It gets you excited. It makes you want to, hit the ground running even when you have an off day. And then you're also learning about new tactics and strategies every single day in the community, right? So it's like super exciting to me. And this idea of a mastermind, I didn't realize it at the time, but when I first started my website, kickstarterforum.org, that kind of became a mini mastermind when I was there, but I didn't really have the know-how to be able to grow that community. I had like 10,000 users on the site, which is awesome, but it doesn't have like a level of service that I really wanted to. And obviously it's a free website, So I've finally been able to put the pieces of the puzzle together to be able to create a supportive community that not only involves me, but also my team with it. And it's so exciting. We're just obviously getting started, but like the response I've received is breathtaking. It just feels right. It feels like it's the right path to go down. And if that's something that you want to be a part of, I'm going to give you a link in just a second, and you can learn just a tiny bit more about what you're going to get when you join this. And in addition, obviously you get direct access to me, but there's also a ton of other stuff that I didn't even have a chance to mention. And there's a ton more that when it comes to just being able to run an effective crowdfunding campaign that most people just are completely unaware of. And what you don't know can really hurt you. I had I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I had a coaching call with one of my community members, and he was telling me he was going to spend $25,000 on a video. I'm like, man, what are you doing, right? There's so many overpriced, inflated services that are out there. I almost view it as my duty to tell you, like, what is reasonable? What do you have to invest, right, to have a good campaign? What are some of the recommended service providers that are kind of my go-tos in this industry? And I don't think anything like this really exists out there. If you were to think about this, if you could have access to a community that's 24/7 posting, have access to me, have all the training at your fingertips, what would that be worth it to you? If particularly you knew that these are proven to work. Now, obviously we have all my success stories and those kinds of things, which you can learn about at the link I'm about to mention, but what would that be worth it to you? If you're doing a $30,000 raise, if you're doing a $100,000 raise or more, right? What would that be worth to you? And even if you're doing something small, like a 10K raise, and you just want to be a part of something fun for a change, not be always working in your silo due to COVID, having to, clock in and not really interacting with anyone and not sure if what you're doing is right or not, and just kind of waiting and hoping that when you go live, it's going to be successful. Rather than that, why not get real-time feedback every single week, be attending weekly workshops, have the support of my team? I think that's really invaluable. And most, education programs are going to be charging you thousands of dollars in order to gain access to an opportunity like this. Most mentors that are out there to have a mastermind, they're going to be starting at least $3K, right? To get started with a mastermind that's any kind of noteworthy quality like this. A lot of people who are educators and experts in their field that have been working at this for 8 years are going to be charging you an arm and a leg to do it because they have the secrets, they have the trade secrets, and they're withholding them from you. They don't want you to get access to you. But I knew from the early days that I didn't want to be one of those types of people, right? I'm not interested in that. I love teaching and I want to get it out there and help people and see their impact in their campaigns. I want to see them get their product out there to other people around the world who then their eyes get really wide when they get it in the mail and they open it up and they're excited and they're using it. It's just such an exciting future, in my opinion. So if you'd like to get access to that and learn just a tiny bit more, you can go to the link that I am about to mention and learn a little bit more about that. That link is crowdcrux.com/mastermind. That link is crowdcrux.com/mastermind, crowdcrux.com/mastermind. That link will take you there. You can learn a tiny bit more about what I am doing, the community that I'm building, and how it's already seeing just incredible response. I hope you enjoy it. Sorry I didn't mean to go on so long. I just got super excited about it. But thank you so much for listening. My name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.